Are you someone who compares themselves to others in your work, in your career, in your business, and it just doesn't make you feel very good? Well, in today's episode, I'm going to talk about my own personal experience of this and 3 tips and practical actions you can do to work through this comparison trap. Disclaimer: any of the guidance offered by the podcast host, myself, or the podcast guests is our own guidance. We are not liable for any of the actions the podcast listener decides to do. Welcome back to the podcast. So thank you for being with me today. Now, I want to kind of share how this has shown up in my life, because I always like to talk about real life examples, right? Not read out of a textbook. And for me, comparison has been a thing that I have to catch myself even now, right? I'm not going to sit here and say I've got everything sorted out, because people who are doing that are just, in my opinion, faking it to look good, to get some kind of approval. So I like to kind of be real with my stuff. But I've been in a project management career for many years, and I'm going to be totally honest, I am not, well, by far the best person in the world at project management. I am average at best. I would describe myself, right? However, things like interacting with people, I can be really, really good. I have a brilliant relationship with my girlfriend. I get on with a lot of people. I do really, really well podcasting. YouTube game, admittedly, I'm working on. It's a completely different algorithm, but the audios have smashed it, right? And other areas, I've been to play football the other weekend, did really good, whilst at the same time I'm not an international footballer by any means and never will be. And I'm good with that. Right. But in my work and in my career and then in my business, and I've done coaching, I've done sales, I've done all sorts of things. And it's given me a lot of experience over the years. I've had my ups and downs, and I've also had a lot of comparisons. And even recently in my career, I was comparing myself to a couple of other people who were brilliant at what they do, really brilliant. They can see things coming, they're very strategic. I'll miss out very obvious stuff sometimes, not too much, but now and then I'm like, oh, I see what I did. And I've worked with some people really good at what they do. And there's been that tendency for me to go, I'm not very good. Maybe I'm not very good as a person. And the brain can do that if you've got that wound of it's not enough. And it's something I've worked over the years. And now when I catch myself going, oh, I messed that up, or oh, that person's so much better, then I catch myself very quickly and realise, yeah, I've just got to realise it's not a reflection of me if I make a mistake or don't do something quite right. Now, granted, I don't be making mistakes every day, and I don't make massive, drastic mistakes every day. I don't do that. But if I did, it'd be a learning experience, right? So comparison, I did it in business as well. It's been starting when I started the coaching business, these big influencers, they're smashing it. And I'm hardly getting any new clients, right? Until I did. I had a bit of a flow at one point. But I'd be oh, I'm so bad at this. Look at people who are the top coaches and be how do they do all that? Or even someone, well, not so much the top coaches. I wouldn't look at Tony Robbins, compare myself and be okay, Tony Robbins is a master. But someone maybe starting similar time to me might be doing slightly better. And I'd be oh, I'm just not doing very good here, right? And it just damaged me. It just didn't do me any good. But how do you overcome this is the question. How do you stop comparing yourself? You might be asking. Well, I'm going to give you some tips that work for me. And I did a lot of mindset work. I did a lot of learning from high performance coaches and people the best at what they do, who think in a certain way and they're successful in a certain way. And one of the guys I learned from was a guy I worked for in sales. Actually had the privilege of running the sales team for a bit with him, but a guy, Dr. Joseph McClendon, and he really taught about praising and celebrating, as simple as it sounded, and how much of an impact that made you feel good about you and not look at other people. And he actually said a quote that's going to be my first practical tool for you about when you do compare yourself to other people. So these are 3 tips that really helped me work through this. So number 1, it's what Joseph quoted. It's self to self for progress and self to others for possibility. And what does that mean? And what do I mean by that? It means that you look at the progress you've made in any area of life and think, wow, I did good. So in project management, it would be wow, I'm seeing so many things, identifying so many things I wouldn't have done, right, than before. Or in podcasting, I look at myself in the past, my first videos, and be wow, I've made so much progress from that. And then look at other people, not as oh, they're better, I'm worse, I'm a bad person. As crazy as the brain does, it does that sudden dramatic, like put yourself down, right? If you don't do constant mindset work and deep work to, really pay attention to what you're saying. But look at other people as what's possible. Even if they're like someone you're like, they're doing so much better and I should be doing better. That's just ego coming in. That's not going to help you. But think, wow, okay, they're doing really well in that. What are they doing differently, right? So that could be a really good thing to remember. And just writing down that phrase or writing down what have you made progress in? Just writing that down. That's one thing you could do. And if you just keep writing it again and again, the more you write, the more you're going to invite in. A second tip I've got is also writing something down, but feeling. If you write it down and you intellectually think about something, it's almost pointless, just being honest. And this is because that's what I used to do. I used to get nothing out of this until I felt it. You've got to feel this. Write down 3 things that you've achieved each day for a week. Just do it for a week, see how it feels. So it could be very, very small. It could be like, wow, you actually cleaned up the kitchen, which would be an achievement for me. I'm looking at my kitchen right now and I need to clean up the kitchen. I'm not going to lie. That's not the worst it's been. Anyway, so you cleaned up the kitchen as an example. Or you went to the gym, even if you feel like you should have gone for longer. You went to the gym, great, that's a win. Just picking out little ones. You handled conflict really well with someone today. Or you stood up for yourself. Or you asked a question you were scared to ask, right? Just writing down 3 achievements daily. Think about it daily. And when you write these down, feel first. You can write them down intellectually first if you want, but make sure you're feeling like a victory, like achievement, like you're moving forward. Just like feel good about yourself. Imagine if someone who you respected, or maybe you like, or maybe you fancy, maybe you're in love with, or just someone you respect, could be in the professional environment, came to you and they were like a boss that you respected or a director or something, if you're not that level, or in business or one of your heroes came and complimented you. Just imagine how you would feel and feel that feeling. For these 3 things, go like, yes, because the more you feel that, the more you're going to embed that frequency. And the more you can feel good about you is the more certainty you're going to have in yourself to move forward. And you're not going to look outside of you for like this validation, for this comparison. So writing down 3 things each day and then feeling that for 30 seconds, just focus on the feeling of victory, of like success, of yes, I did this. So it's like I'm gonna like celebrate after I've made this podcast, for example. I wasn't even gonna plan to do this recording today. I've scheduled my other 2, but this was the other one. And then my third tip is also this: embed the identity that you truly want to be. I write this down in my journal, and then I've written this down on my phone so I can pull it out and read it any time where I am in the day. And I may not shout it out at the top of my voice. I usually do when I'm in my home or when I'm in a hotel, but like out in the streets in public, I probably wouldn't shout my identity statement out. But just writing down your name, so I'd be like, I, Johnny Pardo, am, and then just choose whatever you want to write in that. And the more you can say this and embed it and feel it, the more certain you're going to feel in yourself. It kind of follows on from the last point. But the more, as human beings, we have a need, I learned it from Tony Robbins, to be consistent with our identity. And think about this for yourself. If you're like, all right, I'm trying to get on board with this, Johnny. If you identify as a runner, do you question whether you're going to run today? No, you just go and run when it's part of your running schedule, right? If you're not running, you'll be like, oh, do I have to go to the run? If you like identify as someone who goes to the gym all the time, you don't even question about it. You don't think about it unless you've injured yourself. You're going to go to the gym, right? Someone who identifies themselves as like lazy in work. And this is me. Like I used to identify myself as that, and I wouldn't be lazy, but I'd be like try and compensate by like exhausting myself because I didn't want to perceive people to see me as lazy. But I had it in my head like at one point. But if you identify as lazy, you're more likely to either try and cover that up by working really hard, or you might just become lazy and just not do as much. So identifying how you see yourself, right? But then you see someone, that's on the negative side, or you see someone identify themselves as, they say, I'm useless all the time. Well, they tend to shy away, they don't take responsibility, or like, I am shy is a classic one. Right, I'm just going to call this out because I know there's going to be at least one person listening to this podcast right now who's like, I am shy. If you identify, and I'm not saying that you need to suddenly go and interact with a load of people and be this massive extrovert. I'm not saying that. But like, if you keep saying I'm shy, then you're just going to continue to like usually hide away from responsibility sometimes, not always, but hiding away from opportunities, from speaking to people that could enhance your life. And that's not really going to help you. So identify yourself as how you want to see. And when you identify yourself, you're not going to be looking at other people. This is where the comparison comes in and how this works. You're not going to be looking at other people and going like, wow, that person's so great at that, because you know your identity, you know who you are. So when you can write that statement, that's going to embed it. Now, me, I've like read my statement out like 5 to 10 times a day. I am currently on my, because I do check marks, I'm currently on my 7th time today. It depends how I feel. It's only like a 30-second exercise. I'll just read it out and I'll feel my identity. Because when you're certain who you are and your identity, like I said, it's not going to be like, well, that person's great at that, I'm not. When you can say things like, I am a warrior, I am a king, I am a master at this. Now, these have got to be things that are somewhat believable. I'm not talking like, if you know that you're like, you want to be like, you feel like a king. And we're not talking about a literal sense of a king, but like feeling like a king, you're the king of your life. That's something you can get on board with, even if you don't believe it. But just don't put things like, I am an astronaut, and you've got no intention in travels of space. Don't obviously like put that in. It's got to be within like, don't say you're the fastest man in the world if you're not the, you can't be the fastest man in the world. But it's like, I am love, I am abundance, I am wealth. Every human being is capable of being any of those things, all right? So something that is possible for you, even if it's hard to believe right now, you can embed that in your identity when you really own yourself. Okay, so those are my 3 tips for you today on how you can compare yourself less. And when you build that certainty within you, what we talked about was looking at the progress you've made in your life, writing that down, or writing that statement down, and then looking at others for what's possible, thinking, wow, that person's doing it's further along than I am, but wow, it's possible for them to get there. And then looking at your achievements daily, that's another thing you can do. Writing down 3 and making sure you're feeling it. Don't just write it down intellectually. That's not going to make a difference. It's like gratitude as well. If you just write things you're grateful for and you don't feel it, it's pointless. And then the 3rd thing we talked about is owning an identity. Now, just pick one of these 3 things. You don't have to do all 3, but do it for a week and just notice your results. How are you feeling? When you can write down things that are showing up, that's really going to help, that I personally found. So that's what I got for you today. I appreciate you for being here. And remember, to lead with your heart and not with fear.